First of all, of course, we have to touch the news over the weekend about the attack on the church by terrorists again. Is this something that you think is going to really... It's coming, of course, on the back of the decline we saw in the market last week. Going into this week, do you think this is a factor that's going to play on the minds of investors?
I think for local investors, no. I think some international investors, especially new investors who just started coming to the market, especially because it was carried by a lot of the international news networks, they might take a step back. But I think the key thing is that this is one of the first big church bombings we've had after a lull in a number of months. And also, I think the key aspect is there are no real massive reprisal attacks. I think if they had massive reprisal attacks and the spiral of violence continues, then it'd be something to worry even more about. But the fact that so many people were injured, so many were killed, it doesn't look good. And I think, but it's the effect, especially the security forces can get their hands on it, will be lessened.
Of course, it's quite worrying whenever we hear of these attacks. But I think you make a point about this is the first we're seeing in quite a while. So it seems like there is some progress in this war against terrorism in Nigeria from the Nigerian government. Your thoughts on that point?
I think there is. I think what we're seeing is that the large-scale attacks that we saw, like, for example, when the terrorists took over Kano for 4 or 5 hours, things like that, bomb attacks in Abuja, those seem to have, the security forces seem to have got their hands around that. Now what we're seeing are normally hit-and-run attacks and some successes from the security forces in taking out the leadership. And so we would expect 1 or 2 attacks to come through, but security forces seem to be gaining the upper hand.
And of course, on the macro front, we continue to talk about the impact of this flood, something that is still with us now. But very soon we'll be seeing the October inflation numbers. There's now a view that we might see that inflation beginning to tick up again after we said slide over the last 3 months. Your thoughts on that point in terms of the risks for inflation going forward?
I think there's really 2 things in regards to the flooding. I think the flooding will have significant effects, not just on, because people are talking about agriculture and the effect on food prices, but also on the transport network. The floods have cut off large areas of the north from in terms of major roads and some of the railways. Now, trying to get that food from the north, whatever food is, so say from the north down to the south, the markets in the south is going to be difficult. Increase transport costs in that respect. You also have to look at fuel. There have been fuel queues in Lagos, Abuja, some of the other major cities. That transport costs have gone up. That's going to have an effect as well. Then when you also find out the petroleum minister said that all production had not been affected by the floods. Then DPR says a week later that 500,000 barrels had been shut in. That's going to have an effect as well. So I don't think we've seen the total effects of flood come through yet, and it might be reflected in the inflation numbers.
Well, clearly, we will continue to watch that space. Something that, of course, is worrying not just Nigerian investors, but foreign investors. But let's move on to the news flow around the privatization. Of course, we're hearing that the NCP is going to finally confirm the bidders for the Gencos and the Discos. Do you think we're going to see any surprises today?
I think there will be, because going by the rules of the privatization, no company can have more than 2 Discos. Now, the fact that one company was preliminarily top in 4 suggests that they're going to have to give up at least 2. You also have a situation where no one company can have the 2 Lagos Discos. So even if the second place or someone has the 2, you're going to see that. Also, there are rumors about potentially some companies failing the consistency report from the NERC. So there could be reserve bidders coming in. So there's a lot of things going on. And then you have what some of the governors in some of the South states, some of the states Benin, for the Benin Disco, what they said about the whole process, which, to be honest, I'm not really sure where that's coming from, because you make such an allegation, you have to have proof, and have to provide the proof. And secondly, if you look at how the privatization has been done, only 60% is being given to the consortiums. Of the 40% that's left, I think the states have been given 15%, federal government are giving another 20%, I think, and then the PHCN workers 5%. So the states actually do have a stake, no matter who wins. So I'm waiting to see, but I think there'll be some surprises.
Well, regardless of how it works out, in your view, what are we likely to see? I mean, a lot of people are talking about this as a very positive for Nigeria going forward. Clearly, we know that we have to address the issues of power and infrastructure. Do you think that we are on the right path right now?
I think
regardless of how the shake-up we may see today from the NCP.
I think we are. I mean, I think the consensus is that power sector needs to be privatized. The public sector have not managed it properly. But I think the key is going to be implementation. Whoever is going to decide when they still have to take over those assets. You have a group of the PHCN workers who are still fervently against some aspects of privatization. There are rumors that the transmission company, that Manitoba, haven't been able to take control, so state control since 1st of September. So issues like that, you're still going to have people who are against the reform process causing hitches in the process. Now it's up to the government to show the political drive and political will to push it through, and the reformers, and to support the reformers as they try and push this through.
All right, and final word on what you think portfolio investors are going to be doing going into the rest of this quarter, and we have just about 2 months to go. Do you think that we see this market close higher or lower than where it is now? Of course, the guest I just had just made a very strong point about dividend yields, potential for yields. And of course, we know foreign investors are looking for yields right now. Do you think this market is still likely to trend higher or lower? Of course, we've seen some profit taking. Where do you think it's going to go over the next few weeks?
To be honest, I think it's going to be around this in the next few weeks, because as we lead up to Christmas, traditionally, local investors move money out of the market to pay for for end-of-year expenses.
Right.
And international investors might come in and make up for it, but I think you're probably going to see more stable, unless we see, as the previous guest said, strong macroeconomic factors that pushes it forward.